Sensations of comfort zone. That is our conversation this morning. Now, what brought about this topic? Lots of people say, I love my comfort zone. I don't want to leave my comfort zone. You see, this my space is just for me, myself, and I. And when you look at it critically, comfort zone has kept a lot of people in so many places. They won't move, they won't develop, they won't, like when a lady gets married and she had prospects and then she gets into marriage and she finds that place very conducive for her, it becomes her comfort zone and she's balanced there. Or you get a new job opportunity and the money is coming in, you have the house, you have the rents paid, you have everything sorted out. It becomes your comfort zone. You feel like, why should I push forward? Please, I'm okay, I'm satisfied here. I used to say that, I usually say it on the show, that controversial topics, you don't want to talk about it. On the show, we bring highlights to it because that's what family is all about. And this morning here on Family and Values, I have a very young, she has been our guest last night. I told her, I said, we miss you. And I was supposed to even tell her Happy New Year. So we have a very young, intelligent barrister in the house with us. She is a marketing consultant. Also, we are talking about Mama Praise Judge. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Is this your smile that is always captivating? How are you doing?
I'm fine.
And how is the NGO going? I was asking you about that.
Going fine. We're doing another outreach this
Doing
July.
another outreach
God's
this
grace.
July. Oh,
Yes.
my birthday month. Okay. All right. How is work? How is everything?
It's going fine.
Thank you for honoring my invitation and being on the
Thank you
show
for
this
inviting
morning.
me.
All right. We are discussing comfort zone. Oh my goodness. Now, but let me ask, what is comfort zone and how does it impact our lives? Like I said, a lot of people are just too comfortable in that zone where they find themselves. So you ask questions like, they'll say, but I'm comfortable. So what is comfort zone? So that we will give them a clearer understanding of what we are talking about and how does it impact our lives.
Thank you so much. I think basically your comfort zone is essentially that place, as the term implies, that you are comfortable in, right? It's that place where you are familiar. Yes, it's your familiar space. You are used to doing things the same way. You are used to thinking about things in a certain way, and there's nothing different about it, right? I think I was reading something about growth rings. There are like 4 growth rings, and then there's one, it's called stagnation. There's no growth, and you're not really doing a lot. Then, interestingly, there's another one above it that is called order. Right? And in order, there is predictability. But the fact that there's predictability means that there's no growth. So that is essentially what your comfort zone is.
So it looks like.
A lot of times when we say comfort zone, if someone says that, oh, they have their comfort zone, we usually think of it in a negative sense, right? Because you think, the person is lazy. But it's not only... Comfort zone doesn't only apply to people who are lazy.
Negativity. It doesn't.
Yes.
It's not attached with negativity.
Yes, you might actually be going well. Like you might be living your life, you might be going to your job, you might be excelling in your job, but you're actually in your comfort zone. But people usually, when people think of comfort zone, they think it only applies to somebody who is not achieving much.
Who is not achieving much. Yes, that's where we're coming.
But you might actually be a high performer in your job. Maybe you have been working in the same industry. So, for example, maybe you are a lawyer and you do family law. I have been doing family law for the past 15 years. The same way you go to work, you wake up, you do the same thing, same kind of cases. You're actually in your comfort zone, right? Because everything you are doing is predictable. There's nothing that is challenging you in that place. And the truth is that you asked what is the impact on our lives, right? The thing is that no real growth can be achieved except you're in a place of discomfort. That's just the truth.
No real growth can be achieved except you're in a place of discomfort.
Yes, except something is challenging you. So, and that's the issue with comfort zone. So I want people who are watching to not think that, oh, comfort zone, because you might be watching and saying, nah, I have a good life, I'm doing my best, so I'm not in my comfort zone. No, are you actually challenging yourself? Like, do an audit of your day-to-day life. What is different in the past maybe 3 months? What is something different that has challenged you, that has made you feel that discomfort? If you've not felt that discomfort, then there's a chance you're in your comfort zone and you are not growing.
Okay, now I love how you brought it and the angle you're bringing it, so that it will give people a dual understanding of what we are really talking about. A lot of people will say, just like you said, I'm in my comfort zone, I'm comfortable where I am, but are you really challenging yourself? Is that place too comfortable for you that there is no little challenge? It feels like at the tip of I can do this, but what are the limitations of staying in one's comfort zone? Sometimes you're there. you know, people hardly realize that you're too comfortable. That's when they say, when you're too comfortable with something, don't you think there is something underneath it, you know? So what are those limitations that can make one feel like, you're too comfortable, and how do we get out of it?
Out of it. Okay, so I'll just break it into two parts, right? So what are the limitations of that comfort zone? So the limitations of your comfort zone, like I said, no real growth can be achieved except in a state of discomfort, right? I think there was something, I can't remember who said it, Claudia Colvin or who, there was somebody that said mentioned the quote and said that we must enter into the wilderness to be taught things that we otherwise would not have known, right? Except we entered into that wilderness phase. And the truth is that if you stay in your comfort zone, apart from the fact that you won't grow, you will also never discover your full potential.
True. You won't discover your potential.
You will actually never discover your full potential. For example, you could be someone who, maybe for the past 5 years of your life, you've been in, I'll give you a good example. We see people who are bankers, right? They're accountants, and for the past maybe 5 to 10 years, they've been doing that, going to the bank every day. And the funny thing is, they actually have a good paying job. They're getting paid. But then something happens. Maybe, for example, they are fired from their job, or there's downsizing. They now realize that, you know what? I actually let me learn maybe how to make hair, or let me learn how to sell real estate. And they now discover that talent that they have been putting behind, that maybe they've just been sitting behind the desk, they actually have the capacity to be salespeople. And then you see that they've built businesses that are really thriving. But if they had not left that comfort zone, like I said, it's not like they were lazy. It was just a predictable place. They would have never discovered their full potential.
And that's why we have a lot of celebrities. They'll say, oh, I studied this, but I didn't know I could. And somebody will say, I never knew I could act like this, you know. So because they've left that comfort zone, that predictable situation, and then had to like discomfort themselves. But now, how can one come out of those limitations that stop us and hinder our comfort?
Okay, so I think before we think of how you come out of it, I think the first thing to understand is why do people struggle to come out of their comfort zone, right? Because before you even tell somebody, I can tell someone now, oh, this is how you do it. But if the person does not, there might be limitations, mental limitations that might stop the person from doing it. So we need to first address those, right? I think there are 3 things that make us afraid or hinder us from leaving our comfort zone, right? I think the 3 things I would say are fear, anxiety, and shame.
Fear, anxiety, and shame.
Right. So if I want to break it down, it would be like this. So fear, in the sense that for us as human beings, I think fear is a knowledge problem. Like, fear is actually caused by knowledge, if we think about it. Take a child, for example. People make this joke that like children are always thinking of new ways to kill themselves, because you can leave a child, the next thing the child is flying, saying, I want to touch this fire, I'm seeing fire here, let me touch it. And you're like, don't you have an awareness of
that fire will
can burn you? But the thing is that because they don't know, they are not afraid. But as we get older, we are more aware of risks, we are more aware of like repercussions of things, and so that knowledge is actually what burdens us and stops us from taking action. And so one thing I would say for that fear, which is also a way to come out of that comfort zone, dealing with that fear, is embrace your inner child, right? Embrace your inner child. Like I said, fear is a knowledge problem. So some people, the way they deal with fear, and like, let me just be a Christian, right? I'm a Christian. So some people, the way they deal with fear is that they pray. They're like, God, any fear in me, remove it. But
God is not coming down to remove that fear. It's the knowledge you have that will give. Because let's even go back to the Holy Spirit. I say, I've given you the spirit of this. It said that you should not be afraid. You know, it's there, you know.
So the thing is that fear, because fear has its positive aspects too, because fear is what makes you see, maybe you see people fighting on the other side of the road with guns. It's fear that stops you from going to that side. So it's also a mechanism to protect you. But when you see that fear is limiting you from your full potential,
achieving potentials, and
then you now have to ask yourself. So, like I said, fear. So sometimes it's fear of the unknown, right? You're like, okay, so for example, someone who has been at their job for 5 years, and you know that you are not growing in this job. You know that you have not done anything that challenged you, that you have been stagnant in a sense, right? You might not even be stagnant. You might be doing the same thing every day, but there's nothing challenging you. And you're like, okay, should I leave this job? Should I apply for another job? And this brings me to another thing that I just want to say. Thing with fear, like I said, it's a knowledge problem. So you know that maybe you don't know enough about this industry that you want to enter into. You don't have enough knowledge about like how this thing operates. So what you need to do in that situation, apart from pray, right? Get more knowledge.
More knowledge.
Right? So see, okay, if I want to move from being a banker to maybe being a fashion designer, just go and read stories about people who have made similar transitions so that you can actually see that it's actually not as scary as it looks. Sometimes we just tell ourselves, oh, it's going to be so hard, but by the time you look at it, it's actually not that scary.
It's actually not scary.
Some people, there's this thing that people say that, oh, when you want to do something, you're like, what if you fail? But what if you actually don't fail?
And failure is not even a yardstick for you to stop. Failure is just to tell you that find another way around it and move forward and go around.
And that actually leads me to, like, let me just skip over to the third thing, which is shame. Like I mentioned, I don't know why in our society, I think it's a thing with especially Africans and Asians, because we're very, from a young age, we carry academics on our head. So even in school, then if you're like maybe 10th position in your class, you're already like, God, I'm so ashamed. Do you understand? Because our parents carry those things on their head. Every parent wants a child that, like, my child is bright.
That is bright, that is coming out with all the A's and all the first in the
But
class.
the truth is, and I'm even speaking to parents who are watching this now, when you have a child what do you want in a child? Do you want a child that always excels? Or do you want a child that is comfortable with pushing through hard things? So for example, you might have a child who is not very good at mathematics, right? Instead of you telling that child that, oh, why aren't you first position? Why aren't you getting 90% on your score? If you see that the previous term, the child had maybe 60%, and the child put in that effort, you're like, no, you tried your best, keep going. And you see the child push through the difficulty, the sleepless nights, and the next term, the child gets like a 70%. That 10%,
it's something.
it is everything, because it shows that child, because one thing about human beings is that a lot of us we just want to be the people that excel, like naturally. But no, nothing in life comes easy. Like nothing good comes easy. So we need to be comfortable staying in that place where things are hard, where it's actually difficult.
I would agree to this, because I remember when I was much younger, my junior secondary, my dad, because of financial constraints, put my twin in a public school, like a real public. That was the first time I would attend a public school and we got in very late, like towards the end of the term. And when I got in there, first term I took first. Imagine entering a school when there are almost 2 weeks to exams. And I came first position, second term first position, third term first position. It went on like that to my JS2. Like, it got to a point nobody was competing with me. Everybody just knew that the first position belongs to you. But then when I was to write junior WAEC, no result, my father said, no, let me pull. Now, when he pulled me to a private school where there was thick competition, and then I came back with all else, my father looked at the result and said, now this is your result. This is where you need to push forward. So that now gave me a different idea, like, oh, I've met new competitors, I've met intelligent people. So it made me to sit up. So I can really understand when one is in that comfort zone and you feel like, some people even wake up and say, is it not this thing? When I wake up, I'll just get it fixed and get it.
But it shouldn't even be that way, to be honest.
Now, how do we deal with societal shame? Now, because yes, it's the reason why somebody will want to resign and maybe go into sales, and somebody say a whole banker, a whole you. How do we deal with that societal shame?
I think for that, the simple answer is people will always talk. Like that's actually the truth. People will always talk, and your life is your life, right? If you're a Christian, you know that, okay, you are living for God, right? So you will give accounts to him. And when you have this mindset that people will always talk no matter what, for example, let me give you a good example. I think I watched a video one time where they were talking about like the life of a woman, right? Not to make it like gender specific, but as a woman, if you're a mother, right, and you are with your child, you are taking care of your child, you're a full housewife, there are some people that will tell you, how won't you chase your career? Like, how will you just give up your career for this? You're wasting your life. Okay, you decide to chase your career, and so your children, they will tell you you're a bad mother, you are leaving your children. And so the question is, what do you want me to
do?
Like, what can I actually do? And so that's why you need to get to the point, we need to get to the point where that shame that you think people are looking at you, nobody, if they're looking at you, that's fine. Love is for you. So they will still be looking at you when you become the version of yourself that you are going towards. But just yourself that it's not actually that bad. Like, what's the worst that would happen? I think, this is something that applies even in schools from younger years. We see in schools where a child, maybe in primary 5 or let's say primary 3, right, doesn't actually know the subject matter well. But instead of them to allow that child to repeat the class because of the shame of you being with your juniors, they will take
you
you to another class. But the thing is that you don't know that you skipping that process, that learning process, is going to cost you in the future. In the future, it's actually going to cost you. So that shame that you think you're experiencing, after 2 days, 1 week, they'll forget.
It will go, my dear. It will go. That shame will go. All right, let's go now. One of my boo will be right back. Stop feeling ashamed. Take off that thread and leave that comfort zone. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Miss the first part, please calm down, go to our YouTube page so that you can watch it all over again, because this is one topic you don't want to miss. Like, even me, I'm learning, you know, sometimes we are too comfortable in that place, not because you're failing, but because you're striving, and then you look at it like nothing challenging. Just like our guests have said, if you're in a place that nothing is challenging you, my dear, that comfort zone is too comfortable for you to stay there. Move. We are still discussing comfort, limitations of comfort zone, and our guest is very much here. She's a barrister and a marketing consultant. So you see, when a barrister becomes a marketing consultant, I know she has an angel, she's still striving for more. So you have no reason to stay in that place. All right, so Boma, let's talk about them. Now, how can comfort zone hold us from achieving our potentials, you know, or realizing those dreams we've always wanted to be? I met a man 2 days ago, and because when we have topics like this, I try to seek people's opinion. And I was like, you've been doing this for close to 40 years. I said, is it that you didn't have opportunities to have another job or to explore? He said, because this one was giving me money, so I just stayed there. And now the money is not coming like it used to be. And I'm talking about a shoe cobbler. In that industry, we have people that make shoes, that produce Italian shoes. He never went beyond his small this thing, just fixing little parts. I mean, I went to fix my shoe, and I said, I've been doing this for 30. So I was like, 30 something years, and you didn't apply. So what are those things that can, you know, stop us from achieving or realizing our potentials?
Okay, so like I said, like, back to the things that we're discussing about, the 3 things that cause us to stay in that comfort zone, right? Fear of the unknown, which is why somebody will not quit their job, because like, how would I eat after I quit my job, right? And then the third thing was shame. So the thing in the middle is uncertainty.
Uncertainty. I think that is where the main thing is, uncertainty of not knowing what will happen.
And that uncertainty is actually a real thing, right? So for example, this man, if he had said, oh, he wants to pivot and start making Italian shoes or doing like customized shoes, he might be thinking, if I take this 200,000 naira savings that I have that is going to do my business well, and I take it and I enter this venture, what if it works? What if it does not work? Like, what if I don't get enough customers? All those things are running through his mind, right? And a lot of times, even when you have a plan, right, or even before you make out a plan, that uncertainty sort of cripples you. And I think the best way to deal with uncertainty is to turn it to excitement.
Turn uncertainty to excitement.
Let me explain.
Okay, so put us through on that so that we'll have a clearer picture.
Let me explain. The truth is that when you are faced with uncertainty, you are anxious because you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. And it's not every time you would actually know what is going to happen, to know the future.
You can't even predict the future.
You can't predict it. However, the way you can reroute your mind, like the way your mind is thinking about it, think about it through the lens of excitement. I'll explain. You know Tom Cruise, right?
Yes.
The popular actor. You know he does his stunts himself.
Yes.
People always say that he's actually crazy. Like my friend makes a joke that he's actually living out his childhood dreams. Maybe he's
those heroes, childhood dreams. He has always thought of flying.
He's living it out, and the man is, I think he's in his 60s now, and he's still doing this. Do you know that I watched the latest Mission Impossible movie that came out? I watched the behind the scenes. He was doing an interview, and he was talking about an aerial scene where he was like on like an airplane, right? And he was hanging like from the edge. If you see the excitement with which this man was talking about it, he said even when he pitched the idea to the person on set, I think the director, and he was telling him that we're going to do it like this, we're going to do it like this, and you're thinking, this thing, you don't know whether you will fall, you don't know whether you break your back, but he's not seeing it in that way. He's just genuinely excited about the possibility, like what could come out of it. So instead of you being afraid or anxious about the uncertainties, why not be excited that, okay, I don't know what will happen if I leave my job. So for example, like me now, recently I started taking this course. It's like a school of finance, right? And so you have to do things like financial modeling. You have to learn how to use Excel analysis. And I studied law. When I was in school, I was good with math, but you know, as you do law for 6 years, my math skills disappeared. Like my math skills
has gone somewhere.
My math skills are not that great. And before I signed up for the school, I was thinking, God, this thing is going to be hard, right? But I started thinking that what if I actually do? It's like the possibilities. Why not rather than think of the uncertainties, think of the possibilities. Like when you do it, think of the good things that could happen, like how you could grow, how you could stretch. So rather than thinking of, God, if I do this thing, it won't go well. No, tell yourself that so many things could happen. Right? So when you're uncertain about things, don't stay in that uncertainty. Don't let that thing keep you in a state of anxiety. Rather, turn into excitement and think of all the good possibilities that could come out of it, and that would birth excitement in you.
That's true, because I think excitement comes with passion. By the time you look at it and say, okay, let me channel all my passion, all my energy to this, it helps you become excited. You wake up every day. Exactly. Somebody said if you're working in a place and you're not excited going to work, then it's time for you to leave that place, no matter how comfortable that salary is. We had a guest last week that was talking about how he had lived in his life and he was paid good money, having a comfortable life, and then inside of him he knew that it's time to move on. That was what we're talking about, moving on to the next level. And he said he just decided that, you know what, I'm resigning and we are moving on. He's a clergyman today, he's doing great. Assuming he didn't leave that comfort zone, he would not impact the lives he's impacting today. But now, what are the consequences of never leaving your comfort zone? You know, some people are like that. No matter what you talk, they are there. They are comfortable. They wait for retirement money. They say, no, I don't want to stress. Yeah. And at the end, they are waiting for retirement. But what are the consequences of not leaving your comfort zone?
Okay, I'm going to say a quote that I heard somewhere. The person said, the day you stop challenging yourself, you stop growing. The day you stop growing, you start dying. Like, that is literally the truth. If you don't, so let me give an example. Let's look at a tree, for example, right? We know the whole photosynthesis thing, like how they need sunlight and all. Let's just imagine, right? Let's personify a tree and say maybe the tree, when the sunlight is touching it, is not actually like human beings. It's not sunbathing and just like I'm enjoying it. What if the thing is actually hot? Like, this thing is hot for me. It's a lot of heat on me. If the day that tree, maybe the tree decides that, you know, it doesn't want to step out into the sunlight again. It doesn't want to step out into the rain. It just wants to stay in one corner. No sunlight, no rain. For a while, the tree will still look the same.
It'll be making use of what he has stored, the
energy.
But
when that energy is depleted, what is in the soil is depleted, it will actually start dying. And so that's the same thing with human beings. If you don't challenge yourself, if you don't bring new things, if you don't step out of your comfort zone, like doing things. And when I say stepping out of your comfort zone, people think when I say stepping out of your comfort zone is an action you need to take. No, there's just little, and little things. I'm going to mention it maybe towards the end, like how to get yourself out of that comfort zone. So if you don't do things that challenge you daily, it won't be apparent immediately, but over time you realize that you start to decline and you are not actually growing. So that's the biggest thing about not leaving your comfort zone, the fact that you are not growing, and as a person you actually start losing a part of yourself in a way. And then the other two things that I would say is that dangerous. The next thing is you don't ever realize your full potential.
True.
You actually will not. There are people that you will see them today, right? For example, maybe let's just use Tom Cruise as an example, right? If he never did those stunts, like just tried it to say, he would have never known that it was actually possible to do it. I'm very sure that there are other people who have seen the stunts that he has done, and because of that, they're like, that's actually possible. Let me do it. Let's even use Peter and Jesus, for example. If Peter had actually never stepped out of that boat to say, oh, Jesus, you would not have known that it's actually possible for me to walk on water if I had actually never taken that step. So you will never realize your full potential. It's on the other side of eternity that you now realize that, oh, I could actually have done this.
A whole lot. Somebody said until you cross to the other side, that's when you know that you have a lot of regrets and things you never did. Like, how did I not get this?
You realize that there was so much more in you that you could have done, right? And so, and those are just the two things that I would say right? The fact that you actually start declining. If you stop challenging yourself, you stop growing, and if you stop growing, you start dying, and then you never realize your full potential.
Time is not always our friend on the show, but as we round up, what are your final words, and what ways can one, just like you said, something people are thinking is for me to move out. It's a mindset thing, it's a mind thing. It's just one decision you need to take and it twists everything. So what's your final word on what we have discussed, and how can one be able to build the capacity to leave the comfort zone?
So I'll say two things, right? If you are watching this, I need you to do an audit of your life, right? See if you are in that. Remember, I mentioned that there are 4 growth rings. There's stagnation, where there's low growth, low performance. There's order, where there's predictability. You're doing the same thing every day, but there's no growth. And then there's complexity. In complexity, there is unpredictability. Like, you're not aware of what is going on. Like, things are very different, but that is where you achieve real growth, because you are stretching yourself. So I want you to do an audit and ask yourself, am I comfortable? Like, is there predictability in my life? Am I doing the same thing every day? Is anything unfamiliar to me? If you find that you're in that place, there are 3 things that can get you out of your comfort zone. 1, it's either you are forced out of that comfort zone. And trust me, that's not pleasant. It's like being fired from your job or being thrown out of your house. You don't want that. 2, it's either someone helps you come out of that comfort zone. That could be your parents, your teacher, your mentor. So maybe look out for somebody and have a conversation with them today that, please, I think I'm comfortable where I am right now. Can you guide me? Maybe give me tasks that I can do. Maybe at your job, speak to your line manager, things that will push me out, right? And then the last thing, you can trigger yourself. You can push yourself out of your comfort zone. So I'll give you a task, right? Every day, just look at your routine and find one thing that you can do that challenges you. It could even be as simple as finding a word puzzle that is difficult. Maybe like Sudoku. Find one thing that is difficult, that actually makes your brain, like tasks your brain and makes you do something differently. Maybe the way you cook a particular meal, pick a different meal to cook and say, let me challenge myself, right? When you do those little things, it might not be a major thing like you leaving your job or you moving to a new country, but you are training yourself to say, I'm embracing the fear of the unknown. Because the thing is that fear will always be there. Like I said, because you are older, you have more knowledge. You will always be afraid of things because you know more. But just embrace that fear and do it afraid anyway, because the fear is not going to go anywhere. And then 2, like I said, embrace the excitement of like the possibilities that await you if you step out of this comfort zone, right? Just embrace the fact that you won't always know this thing. There's something called conscious incompetence, and people really hate being in that place where you know that you don't know something and you're in that learning phase where you are learning how to do it, and it's so frustrating. Embrace that process, because once you come out of it, you come out stronger, and not just being able to do that thing, but when something bigger comes that can challenge you even more, because you have surrendered yourself to those smaller tasks, those smaller challenges, you're not able to take on those bigger ones. So that's what I will say to you. Like, the 3 ways you can get out of it: either you're forced out of it, or find someone who can guide you out of it, or trigger yourself each day. Just find little tasks that can get you out of it. So
okay, you see, thank you so much for doing justice to this topic. Yes, when you have very young minds like this, she's a barrister, yeah. So when you look for my trouble, I know who to call. And we will see you in court. Thank you so much, Mama Praise.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I hope you'll not run away. I will not be looking for you the way we are looking for you, but that's by the way. All right, thank you so much for being a part of the show this morning. Time